So we're live this morning, and this is 2020 Insights from Cloud 2020, and we're very pleased to have you here. Now, probably you're not going to be listening to this on the 23rd of November 2017 at 11 a.m. UK time. You're probably going to be listening from all over the world. We know that people check in on this on our YouTube channel, and when it goes out via LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, we get a lot of interest. So wherever you are in the world today, we'd like to say welcome. And this morning, what we have is Dave Wilner, who is one of our salespeople here at Cloud 2020. Good morning, Dave. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. And how is your technical prowess this morning? Are you?
I'm on fire. Like
Are
every
you on
day.
fire?
hmm
Have you
Yeah.
learnt some new skills today?
Only the one, yes.
Only the one, yes.
But the day
Yes.
is young.
The day is still young, yes. You'll have to move on to video next.
Mm, yeah.
And we also have Nick Richards here from Me Learning. Hi, Nick.
Hi, good morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good, thanks,
Good.
Nick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Great to have you here, Nick. And
Thank you.
I know
Thank you. Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
we met last week, didn't we?
We did indeed. It was a very interesting place. Yeah.
Yes. So we
Should
we
we
met.
elaborate on that, or maybe leave the listeners
You
wondering
made
in
it sound
mystery
very
where we
dodgy.
met? Sign
It's
into the
not.
next one and find out.
It really isn't that kind of
No.
podcast.
Okay.
So we met actually at the Swindon Steam Museum, didn't we?
We did indeed.
What a fabulous place that was. Just to bring our listeners in on this, Nick and Cloud 2020 and Click Dimension, so Dan Gadd from Click Dimension, we had a co-hosted event at the Steam Museum, and it was fantastic. What a great environment that was, and so interesting to be talking about some of the latest technologies whilst alongside some very old technology that was just world-changing, wasn't it?
It was interesting. Yeah, I have to shame myself by saying I didn't take advantage of the tour after
Did
the
you
event.
not?
Have a look at that. I know. That's the nerd in me wanted to go and look. And apologies to any train spotters that may be listening, but I didn't actually go. But I kind of wish I had, but I had to get back, unfortunately.
Yeah, we did go and have a look, and those
Was it good?
engines are just magnificent, and it's a real
can
kind of,
imagine.
it's a journey back in time, really. So the idea of having platform tickets, for example, why would one need a ticket to get just onto a platform? I think you can still buy them,
Yeah.
but who ever does?
Yeah. I guess maybe you needed to spot the number of the train. You could only get it from the front of the train, and if it was pointing out, you wouldn't be able to see it unless you were on the platform, perhaps. I don't know.
So,
Or maybe,
yeah, that's
maybe that's
exactly
where they
why.
sold the. Maybe that's where they sold the cake and the coffee or something,
Well,
or where the seats were, perhaps. I don't know.
I think there was an era where train spotting was the thing to do, and I rather shamefacedly might say I have been known to do that in the past, as one does when one's young. Try various things on for size and see if they fit. That
May I
train
also
spot.
suggest that the platform tickets are to wave off a loved one sometimes. It's not just for the train spotter.
It's a far
Yeah,
more sensible option,
oh,
Dave. Well,
Dave,
Yeah,
you
yes,
you're the
are a
man.
romantic at heart, aren't you?
absolutely, yes,
Yes.
but only there.
Yeah.
Only on the
Highlights to
train
me
station.
how shallow and thoughtless I am.
Exactly. It's my upbringing watching the Railway of Children every Christmas.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful film. Well, I think we have to kind of bring it back around now to what we're planning to talk about today. Now, Dave, you are our resident licensing expert here at Cloud 2020, aren't you?
Expert might be too strong a word for it, but yes, licensing is my background.
Is it?
So I've spent too many years really involved with Microsoft licensing, and of course have seen a number of changes during that period where we've gone from mainly perpetual licensing, where you purchase a single license for a single machine and that lasts in perpetuity, to obviously now a more subscription-based nature where the focus is taken off CapEx and gone into OpEx. So people are now running it so rather than having the sort of heavy financial burden of buying X number of licenses up front, you're effectively splitting the costs.
Yeah.
One of the best changes, of course, for current cloud and Office 365 and CRM specifically, is the fact that you can up license and down license on a month-by-month basis.
Yes, that flexibility is really good for industries where
it is great.
You know, you maybe have seasonal working, or you know that you take on a lot of people who need access to that functionality during the summer or during the winter, but you know you're not going to need them at the opposite time of year.
Exactly that, yeah. So rather than having to buy a stack of licenses that then can sit there for months at a time not being used, as you say, you can just scale up and down as you need to now.
Yeah, without sounding like a dinosaur, having already said that I did do a bit of train spotting when I was young, I'm now going to admit to having been I have done my volume licensing specialist, MCP. So I am the proud owner of a volume licensing specialist MCP award from Microsoft. I have to say it was one of the hardest series of exams I've ever done, in that it can get quite complex, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, I can remember when I first started doing the licensing all those years ago, and we had a price list that was literally about 2 or 3 pages long.
Yeah.
And this is just perpetual licensing. By the time that had sort of come to where they, involved everything else, all the upgrades and the 1, 2, 3 year warranties and so on, it had become a sort of 100-page document and was much harder to keep up to speed with. But yeah, obviously, although there are perpetual licensing options still available, there has been obviously a big swing now to cloud licensing, subscription licensing.
Mm. Yeah, and I think, as is the way of the world, these things do change, and they will change. And I think that recently there are some changes that are directly going to affect some of the partners that we work with, and certainly any partners out there that might be looking to add a CRM practice into what they already currently offer to their customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're right.
The sort of the biggest change that's coming is previously people have been able to buy their CSP licensing through the channel, through the likes of West Coast and so on, and that's been open to anybody. But Microsoft have now changed that, or are in the process of changing that, that only partners with a CRM competency, minimum silver level, are able to transact that now. So that will be a significant change for a lot of people. And so I know that Microsoft are looking for people to partner with, so that you end up specializing in certain areas. We already obviously know partner with a number of different organizations to help them with their CRM, and obviously that's something we're looking to continue to do and expand. So hopefully people who are kind of caught in the lurch slightly at the moment, can reach out to us, and we will gladly partner with them to help with any of their CRM things.
Yeah, they're things.
CRM
things.
I was going to say CRM stuff. But
yeah, I actually quite like stuff as a word. I think that's great, but not to undermine what you said there. I think that's really important. That there's always a period of flux. Well, things are always in flux, and then there's a transition period where people maybe have to get their competencies in line, and they want to carry on having that practice. Well, we can transact the licenses for you. There's not a problem with that, and we'll obviously help in whatever situation you're in as a partner of ours. Thanks, Dave. That's brilliant. I think now we probably need to move on. We'll come back to you a bit later on, Dave, and have a chat. But obviously, if you've got things to offer on the GDPR front, please do jump in. But I'll hand over now to Nick. Nick, hi again.
Hello.
So me learning. Tell me a bit about me learning.
Okay. Do you want the elevator pitch or the 2-hour historical background of where probably the elevator pitch?
I think the elevator pitch just this morning. We'll see if we can do a very, very special podcast for you.
Thank you very much. Yes. So me learning, we basically develop online training, and we have a history of doing training in the social care sector. So topics like adult and children's social care, safeguarding, and so forth. And a lot of our customers are local authorities, schools, charities, and so we have done some training around other topics such as data protection and so forth. So we're basically an online training specialist, providing off-the-shelf e-learning courses for people in the social care sector.
Yeah, well, that sounds to me like it's a very worthy and important cause, but we're currently pretty focused, I think, on the GDPR thing. My understanding is that the data protection law has been around for 20 years. I think that's what you said at the last event.
So it's amazing, isn't it? So currently we are working on a Data Protection Act that came into force in 1998.
My word.
Well, I'm fairly old, but 1998, that's nearly 20 years ago. And if you think 20 years ago, I think Google were 8 months old.
Yeah.
And I think 15% of households had some sort of computing device and some access to some basic internet technology.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no mobile phones, no social media, very limited. The internet was something that was going to be used by academia and was really only just starting to become used by business. So clearly, a Data Protection Act talking about protecting data from 10 years ago really is not relevant in today's day and age.
No, it seems to me, just having a quick whiz around the GDPR issues, the thrust of it is to move the control back to the individual, the power back to the individual, in order to make sure that they know what we know what data is being held on us, and that we have the power to ask for that data to be deleted or returned to us. Would you say that was the primary thrust of the current legislation?
Yeah, absolutely. It puts control of your personal data back in your hands rather than in the hands of the corporates, where it has typically resided up until this new law coming in. And the GDPR stands for the General Data Protection Regulation, for those viewers who are not yet aware of it. It comes into force in May 2018. And it covers, it's an EU law and unaffected by Brexit. Whatever
I was going to ask that. Unaffected by Brexit applies globally?
Applies globally, yes. I think if you're an entity or organisation and you wish to trade with anybody in the EU, and you are holding any kind of data, personal data, and any data, if it's anonymised data, then you're okay. But it's very difficult to anonymise data, and personal data can include things like IP addresses, people coming to your site. So it's quite a lot of data. It can come under this, and so if you want to deal with anybody in the EU, your EU partner needs to make sure that you're handling the data that they're passing to you in a compliant manner. Yes. Otherwise, there can be some pretty significant fines and ramifications for that.
One of the kind of the easing in places, I mean, taking on new legislation when it affects you as a business is obviously it can be a costly exercise. It can involve you in some changes to your business process. Right. It can also involve you in needing to make your colleagues and the people, your employees, aware of what those changes are and the ways in which they need to change their behavior, their business behavior. So presumably me-learning is helping businesses to take on that challenge and to have the peace of mind of knowing that they're safeguarding the data.
That's exactly right. Yes, it doesn't have to be a massive task for an organisation to get their house in order, but they have to get their house in order. Otherwise, they could be in breach. And part of the issue and the problem is to understand what needs to be done. The next thing is to then figure out where you are as an organisation, and then how you are. Then the next thing is to get your organisation up to a level of compliance, and part of that includes making sure everybody who works for the organisation who handles personal data knows that, for example, it's not acceptable to copy spreadsheets of people's names and addresses and ethnicity or whatever onto a memory stick and put it in their pocket and take it home and load it onto their PC at home. There is definitely a responsibility for an organisation to make sure everybody in a company is taking responsibility. It's not a system fix. You don't buy GDPR compliant piece of software. It's more like a process, like an ISO type process. So
Yeah.
as an organisation,
Yeah.
an organisation is made up of people, so everybody needs to be on board. And exactly. So what we thought would be quite a good idea is, as obviously having a background in online training, would be to bring some training to bear that an organisation can use to help them on that journey.
Yeah. And so Me Learning has a range of options. Then I can see that you've got it's tailored basically for the kind of role basis. People involved. So you've got things like core, a marketeer, a foundation, a practitioner, and a board level member.
Yeah, that's right. We looked at, there's a lot of information on GDPR, and different people need to know different things. So we had a look, and we paired up actually with a law company who specialise in data privacy, a company called Claydon Law, who are a very nice chap, Piers Claydon, who operates not far away from where we are, and we partnered up with them. We figured out how this training package would break down, and we reckon it was about, from A to Z was about 5 hours of training, because there's a lot of training, but not everybody needed to do the whole 5 hours. So we then started to chunk it up. Is that a word? Chunk it up?
It's a phrase. I think you'll find.
It's a phrase. Yeah, I can get away with chunks. So we chunked it up into kind of more bite-sized pieces, and then said, right, if you work for a company and you've got a role in the business, but you are handling personal data, then you might just need an hour and a half of e-learning and do these modules. Where if you're the board and you need to know, well, yikes, what is it? What do we need to do? And what happens if we don't do it? That might just be an hour and a half of this training. And so we kind of put it into those kind of areas. But then we thought, well, there's some people are more affected by this than others. So marketing is key.
Yes.
And marketers are buying data, they're opting in, opting out, and there's a big changes in that whole area, and it is quite overwhelming and confusing. So we thought we would write a module specifically for marketers. So it talks about what effects the GDPR has with a marketer, particularly around like opt-ins, double opt-ins, opt-outs, consents, legitimate interest, email marketing, text marketing, all that kind of area. And we're thinking as well there might be one for an HR professional, because they're holding obviously details about employees, so that's classed as private personal data. Also around, maybe one around we mentioned earlier about companies outside of the UK or the outside of the EU still being affected. We could maybe do a slightly different version. If you're a US company dealing with the EU, this is what your EU partner is having to deal with. But then there's also an element about this is what the effect is on you. And if you let them down or you don't work in a compliant manner, then that could have quite serious effects on you and your partner. So, so bringing learning that's relevant to the person in this particular context is something we're keen to do. There's so much information out there, we don't want to waste people to be wasting their time.
Yes, and what I see here, and what I know because I was party to making the document that it's on, so I'm not going to be disingenuous here, is that we've partnered with you basically, so our customers can use a code which they can get from us to get a 5% discount on the cost in e-learning. Yes, but also we can offer that to our partners, so that our partners can then offer the 5% discount to their own customers as well. So I'll just kind of begin to round this up, because this is a coffee break podcast. We don't go on for too long, but obviously we want to try and get the really important information out there to you. But so partners, if you're listening and you're interested in rolling this out to your customers and, gaining a small amount of revenue for that, then please contact us for your 5% discount code. It will be personalized to you. And that obviously is really important. So we'll be able to offer that to you, and also any customers, direct customers of ours, please do contact us. We'll be putting this up on the interwebs afterwards on our YouTube channel. So just to round things up here, Dave, I'd
Yeah,
like to thank you for joining us, and thank you for wrestling with the sound demons there.
no problems.
Real pleasure to have you on board, and I'm always interested to hear about licensing, of course.
Of course.
Of
As an
course.
MCP, you would be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Nick, thank you so much. It's
You're
been
welcome.
so interesting. I think one of the things I'd like to leave our listeners with, sometimes things are said to be advisory, but we really wouldn't advise you not doing them. And that applies to GDPR in the same way as it applies to things that come out from the HMRC. Would you say that was true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I would go probably one step further with GDPR. It's law,
Yeah.
so you can't afford to ignore it. You ignore it at your peril.
Yes.
And I think the reputational risk of being found of having a data breach is something that no company, big or small, wants to face. Never mind the financial penalty, it's the reputational risk. Who's going to want to put their data in a company that's had a breach? So I would say one step is people need to take it seriously and have a look at it and get cracking on it, really. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, and thanks for all the help you're providing with us to make sure we're doing the right things there.
And good luck to everybody out there with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to invite the listeners here to join us next month. Next podcast is 21st of December. There may be sherry involved. There will possibly be mince pies even. There will be some people doing bar humbug. I've got no idea who they are, but I think I might know who they might be. So ways to engage with us: contact us via Twitter at Cloud2020UK, email us hello@cloud2020.co.uk. You can read our blog, blog.cloud2020.co.uk, and subscribe to our newsletter or register for events. We'll be sending that information out. Our YouTube channel, you can search for Cloud 2020. I'll leave this screen up for a little while, but we'll stop broadcasting now. Thanks very much for your time. Thank you.